guys, I'm Ryan and today I'm sitting here with Eugene, and today's topic of conversation is going to be about the psychology of persuasion. So whether you're communicating with a family member, communicating with a loved one, somebody in business, there's a lot of conscious and subconscious communication that happens, things that we're aware of and things that we're not aware of. I know one of your degrees, Eugene, is in psychology, and you can definitely enlighten us with some different principles and tactics you can use for business and really any area of your life you're looking for a boost in your communication, which, communication is absolutely everything. So what can you tell us about it?
It's a great question, Ryan, and I think it's a great topic. So when we talk about persuasion or influence in the marketplace, I think we really spend time thinking about sales. We also spend time thinking about motivating employees, and you can use a lot of these tactics and generally in life, whether it's helping your teenage kid get something done that you want them to get done, or working with a partner or spouse, or like I said, motivating employees, or closing a big client, or just bettering yourself as an effective communicator and influencer in the marketplace. So with that in mind, kind of setting the stage, I think I'd like to give an example that went over well. I did this in front of a group of business owners a while ago, and I think I got a lot of positive feedback about it. So I want to give an example, and I want everybody to picture themselves walking into a coffee shop. Imagine yourself walking into a coffee shop, except this coffee shop is in a foreign country. Let's just say France. Let's say you walk into a coffee shop in France. France is known for good coffee. You walk into a coffee shop in France. The entire menu is in French. There's some stuff on the board, cafe this and cafe that, but you really don't know what it is, what any of it is. There's a gentleman behind the counter, and you approach, and you've heard this is a very good coffee shop. You looked at TripAdvisor or wherever you found your ratings and said this is a great place. So you walk in and you look at the guy and you look him in the eye and you say, it's my first time here, what would you recommend? And you're fortunate enough, just to set the scene, you're fortunate enough that this guy is a English-speaking individual, so he's not stereotyping like, but he is in fact somebody who you can communicate with eloquently, completely, and whatever. So in setting the scene, setting the example, you don't understand any of the menu. You ask the person and you say, what do you recommend? And there's plenty of ways that, first of all, everyone should pause for a second and think of what it is, if you're really wearing your best business owner hat, what you should in fact say at that point when a customer asks you, sir, what do you recommend? And as you're thinking about that, I'm sure that a lot of things come to mind of what not to say, right? Mm-hmm. So what do you think most people would do?
Probably point to number 6, the Java Mocha. That's pretty good.
Yeah, exactly.
Probably not something they should do.
Right, exactly. I think poorly trained employees will do exactly that. They kind of get they get the deer in the headlights look, and and they kind of they don't have any psychological credibility behind what they're saying. They're just literally helping you make a choice when there's a lot of choices without any background or any meaning behind that choice, right? So I'm going to introduce 3 basic concepts just sort of in light of this example, but I want everyone to think about this for a second, because as I talk about these concepts, I also wanted to be very clear that these things can extrapolate to your business very, very well. And if these concepts work in the scene of buying a inconsequential cup of coffee, that will very rarely have any sort of impact on the rest of your life. Right. There's you buy a cup of coffee, not really thinking about it a month later. But for a lot of our clients, the stuff that you sell, the stuff of the services you offer, have a lot more consequence to a prospective client, to a prospective patient, to a prospective customer than a cup of coffee. Right. So if we can really hone in on some of these concepts at the inconsequential level of a cup of coffee, then the exponential extrapolation of this is really something that can be truly meaningful to someone's business. That make sense?
Yeah. You said you have 3 concepts.
Yeah,
right?
3 concepts.
Cool.
So the first one, just as an example, what could this guy say? So this guy is standing behind the counter, and you ask him, what do you recommend? So something that's pretty easy for someone to say is just simply utilize the concept of social proof and say, you know what, a lot of people really like the Java Mocha, and the reason why is we use fine beans from such and such and whatever, and a lot of people just really, really like that drink. Our most popular is X, Y, and Z. I would say that's kind of a very basic but pretty a pretty effective response in the sense that it basically says, look, a lot of other people like you have been to the shop,
Right.
and a lot of other people have not known what to order, and here's how they solved the problem. So social proof, this is exactly what it's exactly what the masses have done. So you can't go wrong because other people like yourself have done this thing, right? So social proof in itself is a pretty powerful concept, and there's a lot of different ways to leverage it. This is a pretty basic one, but if you just think about it in that example, you end up kind of putting yourself in a position of saying, okay, how can I use social proof in my business? And more importantly, how do I leverage, the types of things that I'm communicating on a regular basis? How do I leverage in social proof into those things, right?
Definitely.
So that's social proof, I would say, sort of 101. A little higher, and this is obviously if the expertise is truly available, a little higher caliber response might be something like, it might be a credibility-based response where you say, where the gentleman behind the counter says, you know what? My name is Pierre. First of all, nice to meet you, Ryan. Nice to meet you. What is your name? Okay, let's say Ryan. And then I say, my name is Pierre, and you said it's your first time here. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. I've been a coffee entrepreneur for 17 years. I've owned this location for 17 years. Before that, I traveled the world to taste the finest beans and the finest coffee. I've been to Colombia, I've been to Peru, I've been here, there, 5 places, and I've really devoted my life to studying the finest coffee and to understanding what kind of coffee, what kind of coffees there are, how to properly mix and blend and flavor, and all the different things that go into coffee. So, Ryan, with that in mind, it being the first time that you visited my shop, I absolutely insist that you try the Java latte, because it's really one of our finest drinks. And I hand that over, and that would be, that is another psychological concept of persuasion where, you're basically building the credibility of the individual who's making the recommendation, right? Way more powerful than, hey, number 6 is pretty good, right? And of course, if Pierre, the owner, is not available behind the counter, any one of his employees could easily do the same thing and say, hey, our owner Pierre has done this and this and this, and he has forced us to study, or he has really translated his craft and his art by allowing us to participate in some of the things that he teaches us or whatever. So your coffee concierge, insist that you have this. So anyone can have credibility. You don't have to have. As long as you really know what you're talking about, you absolutely can have that credibility. So, it's another psychological basic level of persuasion.
Right.
The third one, and I really notice a lot of people struggling with this because they really go in for the facts. So it's what I call value building.
Right.
But a lot of people, when they think about value building of a product, they get into the facts. They're like, well, the coffee bean from such and such has this much flavor and has this much boldness and this much whatever and 20% this and 31% that. And a lot of people love to talk about their products and the features in those products.
Right.
But when I talk about value building, I think it's really important to focus in on the individual who's trying to make that decision. So that's when you get into Socratic questioning. And you would ask the questions. You would say, well, Ryan, what kind of coffee do you like?
Right.
And then you would say, look, do you like something sweet? Do you like something more flavorful? Why did you come in here today? Did you want to have, a full experience? Did you want to sit down and have coffee and a biscuit, or are you just looking for a quick buzz?
Right.
Do you want a shot, a real hardcore espresso shot, or do you want or do you want to have, a like dessert experience? Are you coming in after lunch, before lunch? Are you kind of get a deep level understanding why that person's there. And again, we're just talking about a cup of coffee, folks.
Right.
So if you think about anything in your business, whether you're providing a medical service or you're providing a lifestyle service, or you're providing or you're selling an important product that's going to be used in the consumer's home every single day, anything you have has a lot more impact on their life than just a cup of coffee. But if I can go this deep with a cup of coffee, think of how deep you can go with the types of things in your business. But the other thing, Ryan, and this is something that you can elaborate on, because I know you're a big student of human behavior, is it's not just what you say, it's how you say it, right? So there's a lot of nonverbal things that go into any conversation. So what are some of those?
Well, going back to your coffee example, let's say, the barista's behind the counter and he's going to make you something. If he, looks at you and says, hello, sir, how are you? Kind of very low, very monotone. You're just kind of like, yeah, I'm doing okay. But he goes, hey, hello, sir, how are you? Welcome. Thank you for coming into our store today. You're kind of like, even if you're in your own head, you're kind of taken back. Like, whoa. So your voice tone, your tonality is definitely going to make an impact in how that person feels and receives you. Communication, although a lot of it, we put our emphasis on the words, much more is the voice tone, it's the body language, it's the emotions that are really underneath, kind of more the subconscious part we were talking about before when we started the interview. So, that's definitely one way, your tonality and how you actually come across. The next thing is body language. I mean, both of us when we talk, especially myself, I know I use my hands a lot, but I also try to make eye contact, I smile, I go back and forth. So, it's a lot of engagement. And life
it's interesting you say that. When we talk about smiling, subconsciously, when you smile at someone, what are they thinking, right? They're thinking, oh, okay, this guy must be happy, therefore I should be happy. And that happens on a very subconscious level. There's a lot of studies about, just even forcing yourself to smile when you're having a bad day, literally moving your face in the shape of a smile actually releases endorphins in your brain.
Right.
And observing someone smile does something very similar. So you can't talk about it enough that people mirror facial expressions, people mirror body language as well when they're watching you interact, as long as you can take control of the conversation. So
Right. Yeah, you can walk in and be like completely, totally ticked off at the world, but if you're smiling and laughing about it and like, even if you're, and I don't recommend this, but if you're dropping your cuss bombs and just, saying all these things you shouldn't be saying, but you're smiling, people are kind of confused. They're like, I think he's happy. I think she's happy. How should I take this? Like, it completely just offsets the communication, but it keeps it more in a positive place. The next thing we're talking about was body language. And, the interview, if we're sitting here and we're just kind of talking like this, we're kind of closed off. So what I mean by closed off is my hands are sitting like this. A lot of times when we're speaking in front of groups of people, we'll see a lot of people in the audience that they're sit like this.
Yeah.
Now this is a very comfortable position to sit in, but it's a closed body language. What this is telling the presenter is that you really don't care, you're not listening, and it also says something about you, your state. And one of the things you can do very simply is just take a deep breath. You want to sit up and open. Just keep your arms open. There's something that Tony Robbins talks a lot about in emotional intelligence, and it's the open body state. So pretty much just having open arms, open hands, so you have more of a face-frontal communication, more of a body communication. Yeah. It shows people, again, on the subconscious level, hey, I'm okay with you, I appreciate you, I am listening, I'm receiving what you're putting out, and it's just a much more comfortable way to communicate. All these little things that if you're in a sales process, for instance, especially if you're going to be buying a car or something where, people are immediately like, oh God, car salesman. A lot of these guys, they just don't necessarily know the proper way to communicate, make that person feel comfortable, even to the position of where you're sitting next to somebody. Some people actually prefer to have more people sit to their left rather than their right. I read that in a study somewhere. Who would have thought? I mean, little things you can kind of pick up. It's just like, who knew? But it all makes a really big difference. So, one last thing I'll say too is like, if you are having a bad day and you're trying to, change your state and get out of your own mind and maybe into your body, or just focus out.
Right before you walk into that important sales call,
do that. Focus out. Just go like this. This is like the victory stance. It's the same thing.
I've heard about that, and I've actually read a study about it. Yeah.
It releases endorphins. There's studies where I think they said it actually for men can increase testosterone levels, to the way you sit, to the way you breathe. I mean, you're getting excited. No one wants to see someone just kind of just like, okay. It's like, yeah, what's going on, man? How you doing? Even if you're a bit eccentric and over the top, people would rather have that than kind of come in too low and just be like, yeah, dude, let's get this thing done. Like, no, like, yeah, just bring it, man, bring it. What's up? Kind of crazy. I'm a goofball. I know it, guys, but it works. It gets results, and people will mimic it. They'll mirror it. Just watch somebody come in who's kind of like, and you start getting all excited. The person will walk out of there excited and they have no idea why.
Exactly. They're not sure why they're having a better day. But you're absolutely right. I think that
it's simple.
The power of nonverbal communication is so strong that people actually want to replicate the types of things that you're doing subconsciously. They want to be, if you have really high energy and I am talking to you and I have really low energy, and eventually I get brought up to your level because subconsciously my mind's like, I want to be more like that guy.
Yeah, they like you.
Yeah,
that's huge.
So that's the thing is in your day-to-day communications, power of persuasion, power of influence starts, and we're just talking about the tip of the iceberg of some of the things that we've talked about, but think about ways you can incorporate social proof. Think about ways you can build credibility, build authority for yourself, and certainly think about ways that you can build value for the client, that you can build value for someone that you're talking about by asking them, by understanding deeply what it is that they're there for, what it is that they want, how it is that what their why actually looks like, why it is that they're trying to change whatever they're trying to change by even calling you in the first place. But just as importantly, and I certainly don't want to downplay this, is it's not just the types of things that you want to incorporate kind of on that psychological level, but it's how you do it, right? You want to have those conversations, you want to have powerful impact moments when you're communicating with people, and that's a basic tip of the iceberg conversation on persuasion. So anything you want to add?
Last thing I'll say is when you're communicating with somebody and you want to have that positive impact, your communication, it's not necessarily for you, it's for them. How would you want to be treated? Put yourself in their shoes and communicate for them to make them feel better, to make them feel comfortable, and to like you, because in the end, it actually benefits you as well. But put them first.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think this has been a great conversation. Yeah. I think I love talking about human psychology, all aspects about human psychology. Right. So if you love listening about it, give us some comments, send in some information below. Let us know what topics you want us to explore, and Ryan and I think both love these topics, so we'd love to do more segments on it.
Yeah, definitely talk more about it.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care.